Hi, Divas, and welcome to Magnifique, your favorite podcast for learning about fashion's most influential women. Today we talk about Vivienne Westwood. I will be so for real, before researching for this episode, I can't say that I knew much of anything about Vivienne Westwood, but, I have grown so fond of her. I think she's the coolest. I want to be her. So I've gained a lot of respect for this woman right here, and I will take great care of her while we talk about her, and let's just jump into it. So as a person, Vivienne Westwood can be described as a leader of the modern punk movement, somebody who craves knowledge so much that her designs emulate and take spins on classic art history and make them into modern marvels, taking influence from varying sectors to create some of her most influential collections, i.e. Pirates, the Mini Crenny, and Anglomania. Let's take a closer look on how Vivienne conquered the fashion scene as a once outsider, becoming one of the most well-renowned artists of the modern fashion age. Born April 8th, 1941, an Aries queen in Glossop, Derbyshire, England. Her parents, Gordon and Dora Schweier, lived a modest life, with her father being employed as a storekeeper in an aircraft factory. They resided in Derbyshire until 1958, when the family moved to Harrow, London. It was here that Vivienne was first introduced to the world of the arts. She took a jewelry making and silversmith course at Harrow Art School, though this endeavor was short-lived, as after the first term she quit, citing that she, a working-class girl, could not understand how she could possibly make a living in the arts. Luckily, we come to know that where there is a will, there is a way. Vivienne got it done. Instead of initially pursuing her passion for design and art, she takes up a job in a factory while she studies to be a teacher. It was at this factory job that she met her husband-to-be, Derek Westwood. And once she successfully fulfills her education, Vivienne becomes a primary school teacher, while on the side creating her own jewelry and maintaining a stall at the Portobello Road Market. The Westwoods wed on July 21st, 1962. Vivienne made her own gown. Go ahead and take a note of this for later. And later in 1963, their family expanded with the welcoming of their son, Benjamin Westwood. Vivienne seemed content with her quiet, slow suburban life. She had her husband, her kid, her career, but was that enough to keep her satisfied? Unfortunately, I don't believe it to be in this situation. In 1965, Vivienne Westwood met Malcolm McLaren, a publicist, and this was the beginning of the end of her marriage with Derek Westwood. The two ended things, and Vivienne moved in with McLaren. She maintains that while they met before divorcing Derek, there was not any romantic overlap, citing that the divorce is a cause of not feeling as though she could reach her fullest potential. While teaching, Vivienne maintained an interest in fashion and design, seeking out knowledge wherever possible. This created a collaborative opportunity with Malcolm McLaren, allowing Vivienne to break into a new, exciting career in fashion. So now we are moving into what I like to call her McLaren era, which was pivotal to Vivienne finding her footing in the fashion industry and laying roots to catapult her into icon status. This era starts in 1965 when Westwood and McLaren meet and start pursuing a career in fashion together. Westwood kept her status as a school teacher, but on the side created designs with McLaren to dress a punk band that McLaren managed named Sex Pistols. Westwood and McLaren would move to Clapham and birth their son, Joseph Corey, in 1967. In 1971, Westwood left teaching and the two of them opened a boutique to fill with and sell designs that had been seen worn by the band. The boutique was called Let It Rock, and it was located at 430 Kings Road in Chelsea, London. The designs produced here were based on opposition against the traditional British standard of morality. It defies polite society and expresses the wearer's deviation from society. This boutique very quickly became a hub for the punk movement. The designs towed the line of completely unhinged and grotesque to hardcore and loved by those with alternative views. With provocative prints and slogans, the designs got them in legal trouble, being prosecuted under the 1959 Obscene Publications Act. This act essentially makes it an offense to produce anything deemed obscene for public display, though making exceptions for art and literary purposes. But after facing prosecution, the duo started making more t-shirts with even more obscene designs. I do believe that this inspired the creation of the swastika shirt, which aimed at sending a message about denouncing the system and dictatorships more so than endorsing the actual Nazi regime. The Anarchy shirt was released in 1977, displaying a swastika on the front laid over an inverted photo of Christ on the crucifix. Also, in conjunction to Queen Elizabeth II on a stamp with the words in all caps, "Destroy," above the imagery. Now I want to hear your thoughts on that. Let's hear it. I'm unsure my thoughts. I see how she got there. I do. However, I feel uncomfortable about the execution, to speak my God-given truth. Yeah, let me know your thoughts on that. Throughout the 70s, Westwood continued to master up unique pieces to push forward the punk movement. For example, she merged the leather jackets worn by bikers with classic pornographic imagery and, because why not, traditional Scottish tartans, think plaid skirt textiles as a tartan. And this produced what she dubbed the DIY aesthetic that raged through the punk movement, punk community. They loved to DIY their own garments. The boutique saw many rebrandings and many name changes, 5 to be exact, all matching the aesthetics and titles of their varying collections. So a few more fun facts about the shop itself before moving on to the collaborative collections with the pair. With the shop changing names so many times, it's kind of hard to keep track of which name belongs to which era. The shop originated as Let It Rock, which sold vintage 1950s clothing. They changed their name to Too Fast to Live, Too Young to Die in 1972 to cater toward biker core. They then rebranded in 1974 to Sex and used the slogan Rubberwear for the Office. Sure. Then they reopened to cater to punk rock and the Sex Pistols, transforming fetishism into fashion under the name Seditionaries. Lastly, maintaining the name World's End. A fun fact about the shop, and I know I said fun fact twice in this paragraph, but these are fun and factual. So a fun fact about the shop, the basement used to be a local restaurant, but World's End was so successful that they eventually purchased the space to expand the stockroom. Today, the space remains aesthetically as it was 40 years ago, though it was restored in 2017. So the two collaborated on 5 collections together. Let's go through them. The Pirates collection was the first collaborative collection made by the pair and shown to the media and international buyers. Released for the fall-winter 1981 season, the Pirate Show was inspired by pieces sold at their boutique. It was praised for its liberation from the constrictive silhouettes of the 70s. It was looser, more loose, I guess. The collection was inspired by an 18th century engraving of a pirate with breech-style buccaneered trousers and a matching jacket. This collection highlighted her attention to technique. While maintaining classic technique, the designs were also partly inspired by African textile patterns, especially the pirate trousers, which included a baggier rear, which contrasted the hippie, tight-ass style of the time. This collection featured many historic nods to the 18th and 19th century dress, British history, and textiles using African prints. The runway was also accompanied by rap and ethnic music, which was considered unique for the time. Soon after Pirates debuted, Westwood and McLaren ended their personal relationship, but would continue to collaborate for an additional 5 years, working on the following collections together. Savage in 1982, which featured inspiration from indigenous peoples, incorporating sheepskin and shell detailing. punkature in the fall of 1982, which featured distressed or recycled garments in pre-washed materials, which often the look was being referred to as hillbilly. Then we have the Buffalo collection in fall-winter of 1982 to 83, and it gained its name from Malcolm's 1983 track called Buffalo Gals, and was integral in Westwood's early work. The collection itself aimed at blending streetwear with quote-unquote multicultural sensibility, and this was taken from the A to Z guide of Vivienne Westwood. The collection features a lot of layering and earth tones and can even be seen by Pharrell Williams' dare I say most iconic look of wearing the mountain hat to the 2014 Grammys. It is a comically large hat. I reckon you all look it up. Lastly, the Witches collection of 1983, their final collaborative masterpiece. This collection's most noteworthy feature is the interpretation of the men's trench. Westwood aimed for a unisex masculine style with exaggerated cuts similar to those worn by officers in the First World War. Post-McLaren partnership, Westwood showed once more for the World's End label, entitled Clint Eastwood in late 1984. The Vivienne Westwood brand continues to open up 4 more shops throughout London and eventually throughout the world, with products varying in aesthetics. Some merchandise promoted political causes that Westwood felt called to promote, i.e. climate change and civil rights groups. So now that the McLaren era is over, Vivienne Westwood's empire continued and prospered post-entanglement. Her fashion muses moved less in the direction of streetwear and found more fulfillment indulging in the past. Her Harris Tweed collection reflects this perfectly. This collection celebrates traditional English tailoring. Westwood began prioritizing refinement and education of a piece rather than youthful rebellion. It was due to this shift that Vogue began to feature her work more regularly throughout the late 80s. Westwood's work throughout the 80s and 90s reigned supreme in her resume. She appropriates the aristocratic establishment status and elitism in a theatrical show. She continues to draw on this theme of heritage and culture throughout her work. Let's talk about my favorite collection from hers, and it's crazy because it is like the first independent collection. The Mini Crinny of 1986, a statement piece meant to juxtapose the traditions of 18th century English women. This debut marked a turning point in the brand and Westwood's career. For the next 20 years, she would continue to create collections that draw from classical sources, such as paintings from Francois Boucher and Jean-Honoré Fragonard. Sorry, I didn't Google that. But this era of Vivienne's work included features like the 19th century bustle into dresses and tartan miniskirts. The mini crinny garment itself is a reimagining of the Victorian crinoline, fusing the concept with the modern miniskirt. With its mini-length, bouffant, large, outrageous puffball skirt, it's meant to interweave the two conflicting ideals, with the crinoline representing the restriction of women's clothing of the past and the liberation of women and women's clothing in the modern day with the miniskirt. It's one of her most popular reworkings, with arguably her most popular being the borrowing of the corset and turning it into daywear/outerwear, leaning into the fetishism and fetish wear trend that she created in the 70s. When speaking on the corset, Westwood is quoted saying, "For me, the focus of a woman is the waist," and that was taken from also the A to Z guide to Vivienne Westwood. He felt it as reappropriating the cinched waist silhouette to add a playful effect, effectively transforming the historically restrictive tool of the male gaze and validation into a garment that exudes female sexuality. So, in short, Vivienne Westwood is to blame for the corset epidemic of the late 2010s. If you were a teen or early 20s gal in like 2016, 2017 to like now basically, but I would say the peak, like 2019, I just felt like the main garment to wear out and about to look slay was a corset. And I never fell for the propaganda, although it looks really cool and I would love a corset. It's not my vibe. But anyway, thank you, Vivienne Westwood, for the trends. Appreciate it. Mwah. Okay, let's briefly go back to the Harris Tweed collection. I know we mentioned it 3 minutes ago, but we're back. The Harris Tweed collection of 1987. This collection was inspired by the Tatler girls and the parroting of the upper class. This period is marked as the pagan era, with the slogan being "Britain must go pagan." In 1989, Vivienne Westwood appeared on the Condé Nast-owned magazine Tatler, dressed as the then Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. This collection kickstarted her long-standing relationship with the Scottish Harris Tweed brand and is often credited for reviving the use of tweed in garments. You'll also notice that during this collection, Vivienne Westwood's brand adopted the use of the orb with rings around it that resemble Saturn into their brand identity. The use of this orb sparked controversy as it does closely resemble that of the Harris Tweed Authority symbol, but the HTA, or Harris Tweed Authority, came out post-Westwood's death to clarify that while the symbol is similar, and Westwood did lean into the authority for inspiration, there is no bad blood between the brand and they fully endorsed the use. I did add the word fully by myself, so maybe they don't fully endorse the use, but they endorse the use. Let's talk about the 90s. The 90s were busy for our dear Miss Westwood. In 1990 and 1991, she received the award for Fashion Designer of the Year from the British Fashion Council. In 92, Vivienne Westwood was awarded by the Queen Elizabeth the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, or OBE. She dared to be bold once more, because why wouldn't she? And she showed up to this event pantyless, which was a big scandal because pantyless next to the Queen. In 92, she capitalized on her knack for making wedding dresses. This is the callback I was talking about, by launching her wedding gown line, which, if you're up to speed in pop culture, Charlie XCX just married George from the 1975 in a Vivienne Westwood dress, and she looked so iconic. It was, I think, like at a courthouse. Very slay mama. I love a courthouse wedding. I had a courthouse wedding, except in New York instead of our hometown. And that's so slay too. I'll say it. And where was I? Oh yes, 1992 through 1993 saw the release of the Pootie and Orb watches. Same year, she also opened a new boutique on Conduit Street. And additionally, in 1993, she was appointed as a professor of fashion at the Berliner Hochschule der Künste School. Now, I'm so sorry about 1993 was a busy year for her. Westwood married once more to her assistant, Andrea Kron-Taylor, whom she remained married to until her death in December 2022. The two met while Westwood was teaching at the Vienna School of Applied Arts. Once married, he remained a silent partner of the label and is now the creative director of the brand, creating some really beautiful pieces. I said 1993 was busy for her. I wasn't lying. One more event for Miss Girl in 1993. The Anglomania show of winter 1993, where she debuted her tartan clan, Mac Andrea, named after her husband, Andrea, which is officially recognized and preserved by the national records by the Lacaron of Scotland. The Anglomania collection of 1993, Westwood looked to classic, medieval, and Renaissance court costumes for inspiration. This is considered one of Vivienne Westwood's most iconic shows, with Naomi Campbell is being recorded as falling during the show due to wearing extremely high heels. And she laughs and walks it off, and it's kind of iconic. But 1996, we finally got a break for a couple years. 1986 saw the release of Vivienne Westwood's Nan collection in Milan. And continuing through the 90s, Vivienne and the brand continued to play with feminine Rococo inspirations through their drapey, silky evening gowns, just in general throughout the 90s. In 98, their debut fragrance, Boudoir, is released. In 99, Vivienne Westwood launches the Red Label, which stands to resemble kind of a pret-a-porter of the French couture lines, and the Gold Label for made-to-measure demi-couture lines. Considering you can't claim haute couture outside of France, this is the closest that the brand could get. Early 2000s were also so kind to the business of Vivienne Westwood. In the year 2000, from April to June, there lived an exhibition titled Vivienne Westwood, The Collection of Romilly McAlpine, and it opened at the Museum of London. 2001, the official brand website launched for e-commerce, and more boutiques in Hong Kong and Korea were opened. In 2003, Moet and Chandon Fashion Tribute paid honor to Vivienne Westwood as the first designer to have a solo exhibition at the Victoria and Albert Museum. And in 2011, Los Angeles became home to their first Vivienne Westwood flagship store. Most of Westwood's work throughout the 2000s and 2010s categorized in one term, activism. She really leaned into activism for her collections. Her 2006 show coming in as one of her most political messages for being a resistance to propaganda. Her spring-summer 2016 show, she stages a climate fash mob in which models carry placards that read Climate Revolution. And jumping back 4 years, in 2012, the Vivienne Westwood Group ended a long-standing business relationship with Hervea, which operated 7 stores linked to the VW brand. This brought on a legal battle on the grounds of breach of contract, leading to Hervea settling and releasing the stores back to Vivienne Westwood. Today, the brand stands strong with Andrea Crontheyer leading the brand as creative director and with 63 locations worldwide, 2 in the US, both in New York City and Los Angeles. Westwood built a fashion empire with international acclaim, supporting departments in women's wear, shoes, cosmetics, menswear, you name it. She had a cult following in every category. I briefly touched on her personal achievements just throughout, but I wanted to give her own section on personal achievements. So if any of these sound familiar, consider it just really ingraining it into your brain. How about that? Vivienne Westwood is loudly celebrated at many points of her career. Let's talk about her highest achievements. To start, let's flash back to 1992 when Westwood is made an Officer of the Order of the British Empire, the OBE, and also became Dame Commander in 2006, effectively being titled Dame Vivienne Isabel Westwood. Vivienne Westwood is also named among the top 6 designers in 1986, along with Armani, Saint Laurent, and Karl Lagerfeld. Notice how they're all men? Vivienne Westwood is beating stereotypes. In the same year, she accepts the appointment to be a professor at Vienna Academy of Applied Arts, where she ended up meeting her husband. In both 1990 and 1991, Vivienne Westwood is awarded Fashion Designer of the Year from the BFC, British Fashion Council. My bad. In spring of 2000, the Museum of London has an exhibition opened to honor Vivienne Westwood in the collection Romilly McAlpine. And in 2004, she decided to devote all of her creations to the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. In 2007, it was requested to redesign the academic gowns for the King's College London. Westwood cites that through her reworking of the traditional dress, she tried to incorporate all of the past, present, and future of the traditional dress. As mentioned, Vivienne Westwood is no stranger to climate activism, and in 2012, she launched her Climate Revolution campaign with protests at the London Paralympics. And in 2014, she turned up at the then Prime Minister's David Cameron's home, disguised in a Santa suit, attempting to deliver a gift of asbestos. Obviously, she was unsuccessful, but at no shock to anybody, she is noted denouncing overconsumption. She says, I don't feel comfortable defending my clothes, but if you've got the money to afford it, then buy something from me. Just don't buy too much. Perhaps my most favorite achievement of hers, she is a self-taught fashion student who followed her passion and built a brand whose influence knows no borders, with the manga anime series Nana depicting characters wearing what resembles Vivienne Westwood throughout the series, using Westwood's unique and powerful designs to express the main character's Nana's inner thoughts and feelings. Westwood continued deepening her research and understanding of fashion throughout her career, studying garments found in museums and historic sources, which is evident in her use and transformation of corsets, bustles, and most iconically, the crinoline. She is my favorite woman in STEM. I love her. I find her to be dazzling. She is complex. She's intelligent. She is just amazing. I am in awe of her. I feel like every time I cover a woman on this podcast, I just find her to be so inspirational. And then I do the men and I'm like, ooh, why? Just why? Hey, how about why? No, that's not true. I love YSL. I think he is fabulous. No, I'm just feeling a lot of gratitude for this podcast, even though there's like 4 listeners. But I was journaling about it today, and I feel so grateful for my intelligence in this space and getting to just learn new things all the time. So that's kind of how I'm feeling. I hope you feel the same way. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Vivienne Westwood is amazing. She's my favorite woman ever. Next to Marilyn Monroe, of course. Yeah, like I said, I hope you enjoyed. I'll leave my sources down below if you want to do a deeper dive. And until next time, next time we're doing fashion illustrations. I know we kind of talked about it in the fashion industry deep dive, but hey, you mind if we dive deeper Mariana's Trench style? So that's what we're going to do in September. Is that September? I don't know. My days are kind of a blur now. Anywho, much love. Kisses to my bitches. Bye.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.